We continue to look at this morning's must-read opinion pages with the author of one of them, former Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson joins us. And Jeh has a piece in USA Today entitled "Embracing a Public Safety Platform Will Help Democrats Heal Democracy for All." I also think it'll help Democrats. He writes in parts this, quote, "Across the country and throughout history, Democrats lose elections wherever and whenever people think we are soft on crime. It's time that we Democrats fully embrace public safety as a progressive cause." He goes on to write, "Rising levels of crime impact urban and suburban blue communities more than rural red communities. For those of us in cities and suburbs, fear of crime is more than a paranoia. It is a tangible issue that stalks us every day. In New York City, people who are progressive on every political issue are afraid to ride the subways. They feel unsafe and want to see more police and fewer homeless people in the stations and on the trains. The desire to feel safe is not a political position. It's a basic human instinct. Voters with varied political ideologies might agree with Democrats on some progressive issues, but will abandon us in droves if they feel we are failing at government's core responsibility to protect them." And Joe, this actually matches perfectly with gun safety and other issues that Democrats are championing already.
Well, it matches with gun safety, no doubt about it. But Jeh Johnson, it also, of course, matches up with what people like Al Sharpton and people like Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, have been saying for some time. You can't really be woke if you're asleep to the suffering and the shootings that are happening all across New York City and America. Democrats have to stand for safety and security.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, Joe. And Eric Adams' election last year should be a lesson learned for every Democrat. In round one of that primary, Mayor Adams ran third here in Manhattan, but ran first in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, in working class communities, principally of color, who were concerned about crime. And so that tells us something about the rank and file of the Democratic Party. One of the things I learned when I was Secretary of Homeland Security is there are national political issues, and then there are issues that are intensely personal to voters. Most often, when I was in office, family and friends, the question they always asked me was not about our immigration policy. It was not about cybersecurity. It was simply, is it safe for me and my family to go to this particular public event? Or is it safe for me to send my kid to this country in Europe during spring break? As the op-ed notes, we all know people who are progressive on just about every issue, but they're afraid to ride the New York City subways right downstairs here at 30 Rock, and want to know that they can feel safe in their day-to-day life. This is an intensely personal issue. Crime stokes fear, and fear motivates voters. That's why I'm convinced that in 22 and 24, we Democrats need to make public safety a central issue. And you can have robust, engaged public safety and homeland security without excessive force, without stop and frisk, and without chokeholds. Just ask Bill Bratton, Chuck Ramsey, and a whole lot of other commissioners from blue cities in this country.
So, Mr. Secretary, there's some new statistics out, national statistics out just in recent days that show that crime is up percentage-wise, a similar measure in sort of rural, more Republican-leaning areas as there are these more Democrat big cities. It's a national problem. But there's a perception. There's a perception that it's an urban issue. There's a perception that it's a Democratic issue. There's a perception that the Democrats are the party of defund the police, even though we know President Biden and so many other Democrats have rejected that outright. But that was an effective Republican talking point last time around. How did Democrats battle the perception of where they stand on crime?
We've got to talk more about this issue. We've got to talk about what sound, engaged public safety means in places like New York, in suburbs like Nassau County, Westchester County, in the suburbs in Maryland and in Southern California. One of the things I learned in Washington is you've got to repeat yourself 18 times before anybody will listen to you. So over and over and over again, we need to make public safety a centerpiece of our message in this election, in the next election cycle, and ultimately voters will listen. If we don't talk about this issue, history shows that Republicans fill the void. And very often they fill the void by peddling fear, paranoia, frankly, bigotry and division. And so this is an issue that affects, in my judgment, blue communities far more than it does red communities.
Yeah, the Financial Times recently interviewed Hillary Clinton, and she seems to agree with much of what you're talking about here. She told the FT,
Ed Luce, our good friend Ed Luce.
Oh, yeah, they had a lunch. We are standing on the precipice of losing our democracy, and everything that everybody else cares about then goes out the window. Look, the most important thing is to win the next election. The alternative is so frightening that whatever does not help you win should not be a priority. Wow. She also blasts the defund the police movement, saying, quote, you need accountable measures, but you also need policing. It doesn't even pass the common sense politics test not to believe that. Some positions are so extreme on both the right and the left that they retreat to their corners. Politics should be the art of addition, not subtraction. And Jay, for Hillary Clinton at this point, I think she knows, unlike a lot of other people, just how much is at stake. I'm still very calmly saying that I think it's a pretty frightening time.
The other way to look at this, Mika, is on the gun safety issue. Isn't it the case that a refusal to raise the age to 21 at which someone can buy an assault weapon,
right,
isn't that the very definition of being soft on crime? So, you know, there's a lot we can go after Republicans on this very issue.
I totally agree. Former Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson, thank you very much. The new piece is in USA Today. And coming up,